Good evening. I hereby call to order the action session of the Board of School Commissioners for Thursday, September 27th. The colors this evening will be posted by the Color Guard from Crispus Attucks Medical Magnet High School, led by Cadre Advisor Command Sergeant Major Scott. Colors are presented by Cadet Command Sergeant Skirvin, Cadet Major Reyes, Cadet Captain Williams, Cadet Sergeant Caballero, Cadet First Lieutenant Pilas. Cadet Colonel Flemons will lead us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise for the presentation of the colors.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order. Arms. Outward. Face. Forward. March. Colors. Hold. Prepare to pose. Pose. Breathe in. Arms. Order. Arms. Left. Face. Forward. March.
Mr. Mullen, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Arnold,
Here.
Commissioner Bentley,
Here.
Secretary Gore,
Here.
Commissioner Hoops, Vice President Moore,
Here.
President O'Connor,
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Thank you. We'll now adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. The agenda was reviewed on Tuesday and reflects all necessary modifications and additions. Are there any requests for changes to the agenda as presented? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. We'll now proceed to section 2 of the agenda. Each month we invite a school to showcase their student talent. Tonight's performance comes to us as a courtesy of the Edison School of the Arts. A quick side note, many of the commissioners and I were able to be there as Edison was recently recognized by the Arts Council of Indianapolis with an esteemed Artie Award for its commitment to arts integration as a method to increase student academic achievement. Tonight, we'll get a sample of that talent from the School of the Arts Dance Studio Company. This is a group of 5th through 8th graders under the leadership of the school's dance director, Justin David Sears Watson. They'll dance to the song Plan the Escape by Sohn Lux.
Leave the wasting world behind us. We will make it out alive. Leave the waiting world behind us. We will not look back this time. Hold on to our reasons and plan the escape. Hold on to our reasons and plan the escape. Silent the sirens, quiet the town. While we are sleeping, will the earth turn outside? Will not look back this time. Don't look back this time. Don't be afraid. Tremors below us, murmur of ground. Hold on to lanterns. Leave the wasting world behind us. We will make it out alive. Leave the waiting world behind us. We will not look back this time. We will not be back this time. Leave the wasting world behind. Leave the wasting world behind. Leave the wasting world behind. Leave the wasting world behind.
Thanks again to our student performers. Let's give them another hand. Each month during board action session, we like to take a moment to honor parent and community partners who make our IPS school community so wonderful. Tonight, we have several special individuals that we'd like to recognize. Commissioner Gore, would you introduce our first honored guest?
Tonight, we'd like to honor Greg Dermott. Mr. Dermott is the custodian of a $180,000 fund created by the former IPS Association he's made the extraordinary decision to transition those funds to IPS Education Foundation to establish the IPS Teacher Support Endowment. The annual proceeds to the endowment will be used to provide support for new teacher hires, professional development for first-year teachers, and ongoing programs to increase teacher retention. Thank you, Mr. DeMont, for your outstanding generosity to IPS.
Next, we'd like to recognize a special group from Rousseau McClellan Montessori School 91. We invite Principal Kathy Laws to the stage to join Dr. Farabee and President O'Connor for these next presentations. We'll start with Ella Comerford Barnett, a 7th grade student at Rousseau McClellan. Ella created the Zero Waste Cafeteria Project. She trained 550 students and 80 adults on how to recycle their lunches, including any uneaten and unopened food. That food is then donated daily to local food pantries to be shared with those in need. As a result of Ella's tremendous efforts, she was awarded a Power of Children Award from the Children's Museum of Indianapolis in November. She is one of 6, or she will be awarded, excuse me. She's one of 6 winners nationwide and will receive a $2,000 grant from the Kroger Foundation to expand her philanthropic projects. She may also choose a partial scholarship to IUPUI, the University of Indianapolis, or Butler University. Please join us in honoring Ella Comerford Barnett for her amazing efforts. But Ella didn't make this project happen alone. She had a support team. First, she insisted we recognize her right-hand woman, co-director and best friend, Sophie Reyes. In an email, Ella wrote, "Sophie put a lot of work into this project and deserves to be recognized just as much as I do. She's a valued member of our team, and I, along with everyone at School 91, would like to see all of her hard work acknowledged alongside of mine. Thank you for your efforts, Sophie. Congratulations." Next up is Danny Carter. Mr. Carter is the lead custodian at Rousseau McClellan. He helps make sure the recyclables go in the right bins. The school also has a bucket to capture liquid waste from lunch that has to be emptied and cleaned throughout the day. Finally, he assists with the food rescue collection to make sure everything is secured and properly stored for the partner agencies. Thank you, Mr. Carter, for your extra efforts in ensuring that this project is a success. And finally, Sarah Carmer. Ms. Carmer is a classroom assistant in the middle school program at Rousseau McClellan. She set up the community partners for the daily food rescue and manages those relationships. She's also been a great support to Ella and Sophie in sharing ideas and solving any problems that may arise. Thank you, Mrs. Carmer. Once again, we'd like to thank the team from Rousseau McClellan Montessori School 91 for your huge efforts to make our community a better place. Thank you again.
Moving to section 3, opening comments. Does any commissioner wish to offer comments this evening? I will now receive public comment from those individuals who signed up to offer comments to the board this evening. I will remind our speakers that you're allowed 3 minutes to offer comments to the board. A timer will start when you begin, and I ask you to briefly conclude your remarks when you hear the timer go off. Comments should be directed to the board collectively, should not be abusive or disruptive, and should not address a topic that might be of confidential nature or that would compromise the impartiality of the board. I will also remind our speakers that while the board is happy to receive your comments, we will not respond or answer questions at this time. If you signed up to speak on a particular topic on tonight's agenda, you will be called when that item is before the board. And please come to the podium and begin your comments when your name is called. Mr. Gramelsbacher.
Laura McDonald, please. Nathan Harris.
Good evening, board. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to be here and to speak on behalf of the students and the parents, and the great opportunity to be educated by a school system that has the potential to be great. This conversation is about the 80% population that you have that I call low income. You can use the word poverty. These students have been with us for quite a while, and over the years, they have experienced issues and circumstances in their lives that I believe that we now have an opportunity to deal with in a way that will lessen their mental loads and provide for them a clear mind, provide for them to have greater creativity in their classrooms. But it must start with a school effort that is serious about dealing with the circumstances that these students have no control over. So I know that this is a tremendous responsibility, and we feel like that you can get it done. We want to be assured that you really understand and that you know these kids, and that when you're making ordinary decisions, that many of these kids have circumstances that aren't ordinary. And what we would like to see is initiatives, task force, and whatever needs to be done in order to provide for more support for these students. We understand that it is a difficult job, but we want you to seek programs and initiatives in other states that work, and we want you to bring them here for our children. We believe that these children have tremendous potential, and that it is wasted, but that we have an opportunity now to make sure that these kids will have a chance if we provide them with a level playing field.
Thank you, sir. Michelle Lorbisky, if present.
Thank you, Commissioners and Dr. Farabee. I attended the action session last month and heard the board applaud $5 million in transportation savings that we were told had no impact on service or efficiency. It was suggested that there were only 2 calls complaining about buses this year, in contrast to the many calls that were placed in the first week of school last year. I have seen the negative impact of IPS's transportation cuts firsthand because my daughter attends IPS 91 and she rides the bus. Last year, we could count on her bus to be on time. Service and efficiency have been so greatly impacted this year that I'm surprised when the bus is on time. In fact, the morning after last month's action session, the bus never even showed up. I called IPS Transportation and they could not locate her bus when I called. My disappointment with the decline in service for IPS buses is not unique. Imagine being a first grader watching your bus drive past your bus stop, circle around the neighborhood in no relation to your route, and when the bus finally makes it to your stop over 30 minutes late, the driver asks your mom for directions so he can get the last few kids on the bus home. That was my neighbor's experience a few weeks ago. These are comments I have received from other IPS parents. Our driver refused to go to the stop at the location my children were assigned. I spent about 4 hours on the phone and got nowhere until a call from the school was made to transportation on my behalf. For 2 weeks, my kids did not get picked up, and they were dropped off 3 blocks away and around the corner from the correct stop. The bus ride is twice as long as it was last year. Another IPS parent said, I was on the phone for over an hour every day for 2 weeks trying to get a new stop created for my kindergartner, as the nearest existing stop was over a half-mile away and across 2 busy streets with spotty sidewalk access. I had to get referred to a supervisor twice in order to get a resolution for our issue. Another IPS parent said, we have had issues all year. The bus regularly drops off 30 to 40 minutes late. Last night, they didn't get off until 6:20 p.m. The driver was very apologetic and knows that this is too long of a bus ride for anyone, let alone a 4th grader and a kindergartner. Apparently, they keep adding stops to the route. Finally, another IPS parent said, I have made 3 complaints just this month. We have had a different sub-driver every day, and it almost has never been on time and always comes from a different direction. When I complained that the bus was an hour late one day, transportation told me that was nothing compared to the long waits other parents had complained about. Apparently, some were 2 hours late dropping off. I hope you now understand that the cost savings you applauded last month have a real and negative impact on our children. I also hope that you will take an honest look at your transportation department and resolve these issues. Our children deserve to start and end their day with a safe and reliable bus ride. Thank you.
That concludes signups for this evening.
I'm going to check one time for the first person.
Yeah, if Laura McDonald is now present.
I've received opening comments from the board and the public. We'll now proceed to the consent agenda. The items included on the consent agenda were reviewed at our agenda review session on Tuesday and reflect any necessary modifications. And I believe Dr. Farabee has an update with regards to the consent agenda.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you, President O'Connor. I just want to note for Commissioners in the community that there was an update to the personnel report to postpone recommendations for transition to school leadership at Sidner Academy. We will have further conversations with staff and families over the course of the next couple of weeks and bring back the recommendations in October.
Are there any questions or requests other than that to remove an item from the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented and amended?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Having no board reports, I'll turn the agenda over to Dr. Farabee for the superintendent reports.
Thank you again, President O'Connor. The first superintendent report is our monthly spotlight. This month we have the pleasure of spotlighting the newcomer program. We're fortunate to have the program coordinator for that program with us this evening. Arturo Rodriguez will present tonight on the programming and share some of the features and characteristics of the support services and academic assistance provided through this opportunity. So we're excited to have him. We'll ask that Arturo come forward at this time.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Farabee and the School Board of Commissioners for inviting us to the spotlight for this month. I also have Mrs. Jessica Dunn, our Director of ESL Programming, that will support in our presentation. So again, thank you. There you go. So just a quick overview of what we like to highlight. We would like to talk a little bit about who we are, some of our school data, some of the lessons that we've learned in our 2 years of existence, and my favorite, some of the community partnerships that we have. So our mission, the newcomer program educates and values the rich diversity of newcomer students and families by providing both a challenging, and I repeat that, challenging academic environment and also comprehensive community partnerships that foster the empowerment and the growth of our global citizenship. Our purpose, when we started, our purpose was to serve students that had English proficiency levels of between 1 and 3, and that have been in the country for less than 1 year. And that has evolved a little bit because we also serve them sometimes a little bit more than 1 year. Based on the circumstances, sometimes we have students that come into our program in the middle of the year, and we feel that we can provide them a year and a half and get them ready for the transition of their neighborhood schools. Here's a profile, and this is just in the middle of September, of the languages that are spoken in our building. This shows about 9, but we're currently around 15, Spanish being our most common and Swahili being our second most popular. And as far as countries that are represented in our school, that has also grown. I have listed here 20, but we're about 23. So we're across the globe from Central America, Mexico, parts of Africa, and even as far as Pakistan.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about our newcomer enrollment data. So when we began this journey back in August of 2016, we had about 40 students that we were serving in grades 7 through 9. Since then, our enrollment, as you can see, starts off at about 120 students at the beginning of the school year. And by the end of the school year, we end up with well over 200 students. And so that has been really exciting to see that growth despite some of the trends that we've seen in immigration nationwide. Our current grade level enrollment, as Mr. Rodriguez said, is students in grades 2nd through 11th. When we started the newcomer program, it was designed for students in grades 3 through 9. But as we've learned and as we've grown, we've discovered that sometimes we have students whose families have come from war-torn nations, and they're really apprehensive about separating their children. And so we've allowed second graders to attend in these situations. In addition, we've noticed that students sometimes come to us with transcripts from their countries. And so we audit those transcripts, and if students are able to attend the program because they haven't taken the courses that we offer, we allow them to attend the program. And I also want to make sure that I stress the fact that this is a choice program, and so that students are not required to attend, but they choose to attend based on this being the best fit for their child. So we expanded to include elementary school last year, and we're really, really excited about that growth of our students in grades 3 through 6. As you can see here, we offer English, math, enrichment and interventions, as well as the related arts. It's very important to note that regardless of the fact that you don't see science and social studies indicated on this graph, we do teach science and social studies through the elementary literacy English language arts block. We have 4 units of study that we use. We have identity, we have community, we have environment and society. And these are all the standards that are science and social studies standards that are infused within that ELA curriculum. Our middle school and high school offerings, you will see, are very much in line with what you would see at a traditional middle school or high school. Our high school, we have expanded the offerings that we originally had anticipated offering our students. As you can see here, we offer art, we offer music, we have health, we have actually something that we're really excited about, and that's Heritage Spanish, something that we've been able to offer. And so we've been able to expand the course offerings based on the dynamic needs of our students. Mr. Rodriguez is going to talk a little bit about attendance.
So these are our attendance numbers as of last year based on elementary middle school, and high school. The overall is 94%. And so as we looked at this year, our goal is to increase that to 97 or better. And so we have I don't know if the community knows that we have a strong leadership with our counselor and our social worker. So it is not uncommon to see those two staff members paying visits early in the morning to help some of these students get to class. And we believe that that is a little bit low is because there are some obstacles for some of our families. That's with immigration. Sometimes they're not allowed to leave their home at certain parts of the day. And just educating our families about the different policies and letting them know that IPS is there to support them 100%. And on the academic side, here's some of our data from last year. A lot of our students come in, and this is natural, and you have to understand this, they come to us below reading level. TRC is an assessment that we give. It's text, reading, comprehension, and so they're below up to 2 years. And so by the end of the year, we see tremendous growth, and we hope that we can do better this year, where they jump 4 to 6 reading grade levels by the end of the year.
So one thing that has been very exciting is to see the evolution of the newcomer program over the course of the last 2 years. So as we embark on year number 3, as I've spoken about a little bit, we have expanded the course offerings. We realize that we have to meet students where they are with regards to trauma-informed practices, and so we are very excited about the partnerships that have been developed. We also have an opportunity to really improve the transition that students are experiencing as they move from the newcomer program to either their choice program at high school, their boundary school, or other option. And so we're really excited about the work that we're doing there. And last but not least is really increasing that rigor. You know, Mr. Rodriguez spoke a little bit about the fact that we have students that are coming to us multiple grade levels behind, sometimes without formal schooling at all. But what we know is that we have to make sure that they are having access to grade level content. So we've partnered with ANET to really increase the rigor to ensure that our students are prepared for success and ultimately graduation from Indianapolis Public Schools. And finally, our community partners.
This is a core piece to the newcomer program. We have currently 19 community partnerships, and we focus a lot on wraparound services, the music, arts, and PE program, and our parent involvement educator is also central to this partnership. As far as wraparound services, we have a lot of kids that come to us with trauma. And as you can imagine, after Jessica was mentioning war-torn countries, hurricane, we have on average 3 to 5 students enroll each week at our program, which is why we expect our program to reach 220 so by the end of the year. And so we have Eskenazi involved, Midtown, Arts for Healing, My Life, My Choice, Brooks Place. These are all counseling programs that help with our students manage and prepare for the transition of returning back to the neighborhood school. The arts and music program are tremendous. We have, they've been highlighted for their work, and we have 2 grants involved. One is the Any Given Child program, and our Related Art program have brought visiting artists to the school, not only to make the kids feel at home, but also educate them and educate even our staff on some of the culture that they bring to the building. Also, we have the Catch program, which is a PE program, which is helping kids learn to make healthy choices. Also, we have Mrs. Kogan, who's brought to us a food pantry and clothes closet. We expanded so much that we now have 2 rooms to handle that. As of the middle of September, we have served 25 families with donations of food, clothing, and household goods. Some of our families come with absolutely nothing, and so when we visit their homes, there really is just an apartment with rug. And as of now, I think we've reached about 25 different families. Future partnerships, the Midwest Food Bank, St. Gabriel Catholic Church, and Gleamers, we're all preparing and being ready for them to be part of our newcomer program. At this point, this is the end of the presentation, but we are open.
Real quickly, I have to tout that we have one new community partnership that I really am extraordinarily excited about, not just for our newcomer program, but for all of the families on the west side. We have recently partnered with Washington Township and their adult education program to offer ESL classes that are going to be held at Newcomer. They are going to begin at the end of October, and this is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity for the families at Newcomer as well as the other families in IPS. So we're extraordinarily excited. Ms. Colgan, who's the parent involvement educator, will be directly part of the educational process as well as Sarah Hutchison, who is one of our ESL specialists for the district. So we are extraordinarily blessed that our families have this opportunity. So at this time, if there are any questions for us.
I just want to add, we have 40 parents that are interested in this program, so I think we're going to have to expand to more than just one classroom.
Which is what we're hoping.
Which is what we're hoping, so we're excited about families being involved. But any questions from the board or the community or Dr. Farabee?
Thank you.
I have one question. So and I know it varies by student, by family, but typically, how do you get referrals to the Newcomer School?
Sometimes the families just come to us. They ask. We've been around for 2 years, so they know that we exist. Also, our ESL teachers from other schools also make those referrals. Sometimes we make the phone calls ourselves, and we visit the families or bring them to visit the school.
We also have a strong partnership with Catholic Charities as well as Exodus, and so they come directly to us as well and let us know when they have families that are resettling.
Commissioner Arnold?
You work with the Immigrant Welcome Center as well?
Yes, we do. We work with the Immigrant Welcome Center. We actually hosted branch hours for natural helpers in our first year of inception, and we're not very successful, but we still have an ongoing partnership with them, as well as COIN, which is also a community organization. So we've had family safety nights and other events for families with those community partners.
Commissioner Core?
How do you feel about your graduation rate? Do you feel that it's improving as you go along?
So that's a great question. Since we just started this program 2 years ago, we don't have any students who have graduated because they start out as ninth graders. But the ultimate goal is to ensure that our students are prepared for graduation. And so one of the things that I would like to highlight is, as we're always evolving and growing, we've looked at the new graduation pathways requirements. And one of the things that we're looking at doing is how we can infuse some of those requirements into the Newcomer program so that students are even more ready for graduation and on track for success.
I was glad to hear that the parents aren't going to get some training as well. Yes.
Commissioner Bentley?
Just the program, though, is not it's intended to give really intensive sort of primarily English, but obviously other coursework as well, so that the students can transition to one of the traditional elementaries or middle schools or high schools, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Can they, as a follow-up, but can they graduate from the Newcomers program?
They cannot.
Okay, all right. Just as a personal aside, our church sponsored a couple refugees families, and Newcomers program was very, very, very helpful. One of the students had no formal education prior to coming here, so learned firsthand that it's wonderful opportunity, but it's also a challenge when someone is 16 years old and hasn't had any formal training. So kudos to your team and the people at Newcomers, because without that kind of intensive support, these students would just be lost, I think.
Well, thank you. We certainly appreciate the support of the board and Dr. Farabee, and know that we still have work to do, and we're going to improve our practice so that we are better than ever.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes, speaking of work, slide number 11, did I understand you to say that from the time of inception into the school until the end of the year, that elementary students were reading at they went up 4 grade levels as it relates to reading, middle school 5 and 6? And if the answer to that is yes, can you talk to me about, what you think helped you to get to this successful level?
I think the professional development that the ESL department provided for the staff has been beneficial. They are the best staff to support this program. They've been with this program for 2 years. They've learned how to do this, and they improve on their practices. And so like Jessica was saying, ANET is now part of this, and so the rigor is going to be, it's going to improve. And so we're always reflecting back on our practices, on what worked, and how to improve those things that are missing. And so we look closely at the IPS strategic priorities, and we work on that and see how that fits into our vision.
I mean, it's impressive if you're saying that, you know, you take a student from like first grade reading level to the fifth grade reading level in 1 year. So, I mean, that's your average, right? Is that what you're saying?
So those are TRC levels, and so I don't want to mislead you in that work, is that we have a lot of work to do in terms of moving that needle. And so that's one of when we talk about the increased rigor, is that we want to see those TRC levels improve even more than what we currently have them at. And so it is, we're doing good work, but we really need to get to the point where we're doing exceptional work with moving students beyond just 1 or 2 grade levels of reading levels.
So the level 4.1, when I look at, so that is what you aim to get to, is that right?
That
Or
is the
student
average.
goes up 4?
That's the average. So we might have some kids that jump more than just that 4.1.
That's what I thought you
But on average, most of our kids jump 4 levels in the elementary. And high school, it'll jump up to 6. So some kids may not reach that 6, but
Right.
that's the average.
That's the average. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Arnold?
Have the recent concerns and issues related to immigration and immigration policy, understanding probably most of these children or maybe were born here, but parents were not, and fears and concerns, has that had any impact on participation or families feeling safe and feeling okay about coming to the program?
So what we find is actually most of the students are the newcomers, and their parents many of the times have been living in the country for a significant period of time, not always, but a lot of times. And so what we do see, though, is that there's a lot of fear in terms of possible deportation. That's one of the reasons that we've partnered with the Coalition of Our Immigrant Neighbors, COIN, to be able to offer family safety nights so that families have a plan in place in the event that they were to be deported, so that there's a guardian in place here in Indianapolis that can take care of their children. And so, you know, there are a lot of fears, and we've seen far fewer immigrants than we thought we may because the refugee resettlement numbers are down. But what we find is that the newcomer program is probably best equipped to serve the students based on the supports that Principal Rodriguez, as well as all the newcomer staff, are able to provide.
Because it could be pretty scary for parents to think, I can drop my child off at school and somehow be
Yes.
arrested or be deported and not be able to get back to my children.
Yeah,
So,
it's certainly a reality.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, the next item is an update on the IPS Wellness Program. Weston Young will introduce our presenter for this evening and share with you a little bit about what will be presented, which includes some of our wellness goals and highlights as we think about employee wellness. Thank you, Weston.
Thank you, Dr. Fairby. Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, I have an opportunity to introduce to you Apex Benefits. They have been our health insurance benefits consultants for the last couple of years. Stan Jackson will be providing an update on that. Just reflect 3 years ago when I joined the district, wellness program was not in place. And in the last 3 years, working with Minnie Schlegel in HR and Donna DeNorcia Reed in benefits, considering the dollars that we spend on employee compensation and benefits, at the same time trying to develop an attractive and a recruiting opportunity and a retention opportunity for HR, just trying to make sure that we create a wellness culture here, not just in our schools, but at least in our staffing. That's been an important drive of our district the last 3 years. So Stan's going to share the current program and the shift that we've made recently, and so turn it over to Stan.
Thank you, Weston, and thank you for having us tonight. It's really our privilege at Apex to be your advisors, and we take that responsibility very, very seriously. And we are always here to help in any way possible that we can. So anytime that we can do anything for the district, please don't hesitate to ask. So with that, let's see, am I doing the right thing here? There we go. So we designed this program with all the stakeholders of IPS involved, the employees from the administrative staff, the teaching staff, and the represented staff of the bus drivers, the janitorial, the food service people, and put this together with them in mind. We wanted to bring something to the table that would engage everyone. It certainly is not something that we're going to force upon people, but we are going to be out and we are going to get out and meet with people at their place of work because we think that's the best way to engage people and get them to take seriously their health care. Certainly the district and every employer providing health care benefits is feeling the sting all the time of the rising tide of cost, and the insurance carriers have beaten on the providers to bring the cost down in terms of pricing. So the next phase, I think, is to look at the demand side of the equation and how can we do the most to prevent those illnesses and injuries potentially that are driving cost. As Weston said, we do want to create a culture within the organization, and organizations that are successful in either maintaining or reducing their overall healthcare costs create that environment for which that to thrive, and from that, hopefully, we will see great success. The challenges are always, there's always new technologies and new treatments that appear that help many, many people. The other side of that is the cost equation, that these treatments and medical procedures do cost additional money, and they put a lot of stress on the overall plan. So, kind of we're doing this in a phased approach. Phase one, we started back in August, and we introduced our on-site health coaches and hired that staff, and they have been out and visited many of the schools, and we were also introduced at the principals meetings back in late August. Before, we were using the Our Health Clinic model, was a wellness resource that people could use. They could go in, they could get coaching at the clinic, but it always had to be at the clinic. We decided to move away from that model for a variety of reasons. Some of it was the cost, some of it was the engagement that we were seeing. The model, not really the fault of Our Health, just the way they were set up and structured for a teacher population that can't get away at any moment whenever an appointment is available. We felt like everybody was competing for those 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock slots. And not only were the IPS employees competing for those, but all of Our Health's other clients as well. So their model, while very effective, we have a number of clients that are with them. It just really wasn't performing kind of up to the standard. We did a cost analysis over that, presented that to everyone, and then moved forward instead with this program. Again, it's a matter of convenience, and it's about meeting people where they live, where they work, and getting them to engage from there. We have hired 3 health coaches to perform the services at each location, and they will be traveling around. One individual is experienced in exercise science, is really her discipline. We also have a registered dietitian, and we have somebody who's a behavioral health specialist, and also she is a doula, a licensed doula in the state of Indiana. So we are looking forward to them being out. They have been out meeting with people already, and we're continuing that effort today. And if for some reason the individual assigned to a school that is the exercise science background meets and coaches someone who needs more dietitian-oriented services, we will swap those resources out and connect that person accordingly. And in addition to our 3 staff, we at Apex also have a registered nurse on staff, and we also have a registered dietitian, and both of them are responsible for overseeing and supervising this program. So again, we've done the introductions. We've been out to 46 of the locations out of 55, and that was as of last week. So we're continuing to meet with people and moving forward with that effort. So, there we go. The next phase of this that's going to happen is going to take place in October and November, and that is we will be doing on-site biometric screenings. And a biometric screening is simply a finger prick where they take a little bit of your blood They read your cholesterol, your blood sugar levels. They'll be taking BMI or weight measurements. And then on top of that, they'll be doing blood pressure readings for people as well. And in addition, we'll have a vendor out from IU Health, and they will be performing flu shots on site at no cost. That expense will be billed back to the current health plan as a preventative wellness service, so it will be covered at 100% for the employees and will be absorbed then into the health plan cost. And then from that, if you participate in the program, you also are eligible to receive a payroll deduction credit that will lower the cost of your health care and your payroll costs for your health insurance. So we've also added a program to kind of replace the clinic that has a zero copay, and it's through a telemedicine service called 1-800-MD. That program allows people access 24/7, 365 days a year to access a board-certified Indiana licensed physician. This is not offshored, anything like that. And the disciplines are internal medicine, family practice, and pediatricians are available to that. You can do it through just a regular telephone call, or you can also do it on a video chat. And the physicians are able to do electronic prescribing. And when you go in, you set up your account, and you can designate the pharmacy that you wish to use to refer that prescription so that you can have it filled. They do not write any narcotics at all. It would just be for really urgent acute care visits that you would normally go to your primary care physician for. And again, the service is available to everyone enrolled on the medical plan, as well as their dependents and spouses who also participate. We're also launching what's called a wellness portal, and inside the wellness portal is where the biometric screening data will be housed for each individual. Everyone will be able to go in and log into that portal, keep track of their information. They'll be able to see from year to year any changes kind of in their health status. They'll know what their cholesterol number was the previous year. They'll know it in the most recent year and every subsequent year after that to be able to kind of compare where they stand at that moment in time. We're also able, for the coaches can go in and on the individual person's record, keep track of notes of what they've coached on, kind of what the goals are for each coaching appointment, and then help those people so they can achieve the outcomes that we're trying to drive to lower the healthcare cost overall. And then again, there's also written content out there for people to refer to. It's probably something a little bit better than maybe the WebMD portal. You know, if you need information about exercise, various health conditions, that information is out there as well to engage in. And again, this will help from an administrative standpoint. It will help manage the overall administration of the program, especially when it comes to incentives. Apex has also purchased an analytics platform and does analysis on the data. So we'll be getting the claims data from the current carrier as well as Anthem when they were the carrier. And that way we'll be able to identify people potentially to go out and outreach to at the schools and try to get them to engage again where they work and see what we can do to help those individuals. So by driving this off of the data, we feel like we can have probably the best success and create the right programs of what the challenges are overall. Again, we can look at specific health challenges, and that would be things like Biggest Loser contest. It could be walking programs, whatever might be, you know, kind of in the mode at that point in time. And so the second phase then is going to be with the health coaches. They will be out at the schools on a full-time basis, traveling to each location on a consistent schedule and meeting with people and scheduling those appointments. People will be able to go in on the wellness portal as well and schedule with them, but we will have access to individuals who might be interested through either the administrative offices in the locations, or they can call our folks and email our folks directly. From the standpoint of specialty programs that we also want to run, would be looking at tobacco cessation, weight management, lifestyle modification, stress management, and again, getting into the disease-specific areas. If we find that we've got an issue with diabetes. Maybe we do a lot of education and information around that, hypertension, et cetera. We're also going to do some leadership programs with the principals and to help the teachers along the way, offering some fitness classes down the road, and again, looking at the incentives that are being provided and how to get the most out of those incentives and move towards more of something that's more outcomes-based rather than participation-based. So overall, kind of the benefits of the program, again, it's for the convenience of the employees, and it's to drive down the healthcare cost. Doing things on site, we're getting support from the employees to make this initiative work and work properly. We start that culture, and this is a great place to start it, is at each location. We'll be introducing also, while the 1-800-MD program has been rolled out and communicated, we want to do more around that, get people up to speed on that. We'll be doing that at the biometric screenings, and then there'll also be the open enrollment period for people to make their elections on their benefits. So we'll be getting people to engage there. Again, on-site coaches and what they'll provide to the employees, particularly those people maybe that are struggling the most, is how can we engage and get them involved. So, and then here's just kind of a quick timeline of where we are. So we launched the 1-800-MD application back in September. We're also out doing the information sessions. October and November, we'll be doing the screenings on site. The coaches will be there as well. So if there is somebody that's identified in the screening that's having an issue that's not well controlled or we're not aware, there will be people there to meet with them individually and talk about, what their status is, what they need to do, and then following up with them and getting appointments scheduled with the coaches. And if necessary, with our RN and our other registered dietitian, we'll also be looking at maybe there are people that we need to refer immediately to their primary care physician to get them care. In December, we'll be registering again for the one-on-one coaching and continue that effort. And that'll just always be an ongoing thing of trying to get people engaged. So as we've talked about, if we're not filling up our slots, we need to go out and find those people that can fill those slots and make sure that we do that outreach rather than just waiting for people to come to us. And with that, I think we are at the end of the presentation, it looks like.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
Just, I assume you build best practices around other clients and other things. So what's the, not holding anything, but what's your expectations post-implementation of something like this with regards to controlling certain costs in certain places? I presume you've done this elsewhere and had success. What do those successes look like?
I think first and foremost, we'll be looking at the people that we identify and that we coach. We'll be looking at those people to see if they have a health condition, are they getting their medications filled? And that comes through our analytics portal that Apex has. And we'll be looking and sharing that information with the coaches. When we find individuals, for example, that are not getting their medications filled, we'll be bringing that to their attention and finding out, is it an economic issue? Is it they're having bad reaction to the medications they are taking? So that's kind of the avenue that we would take with anybody who's not medication compliant. Anyone who's having other issues of stress management, anything along that line, we'll be looking at, can we engage the EAP program that is available to people and refer them to that. If we feel like they need something in addition to that, our RN is actually trained as a behavioral health specialist. And then she also works with children. She's actually works part-time at Riley Children's Hospital. So one of the things we want to do there also is engage the teaching staff for new teachers, anybody like that, to help them with child behavior and some of those things. So what we would want to report back is how many people we coached, what we did with those individuals, and how we impacted their lives. If they had high blood pressure, do we now have them on a medication? And are they in compliant? And as we're following up with them in future coaching sessions, we see their blood pressure coming to the right levels as recommended by their age, weight, sex, etc. So you're welcome. Anything else? Thank you for your
sir.
time. Appreciate it.
Commissioner, the next report is an extension of the conversation we recently had around teacher leadership. You'll recall we recently had an update on implementation of opportunity culture. We also at the time referenced that there are many other teacher leadership roles and opportunities within the district. And Shago will highlight some of those roles tonight and also share the compensation, some of the participation and results that we've had as relates to teacher leadership opportunities across the district. Welcome, Mindy.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm very excited to come talk about teacher leadership and not policy revisions. This is the fun part of my job. So as Dr. Barabee articulated, I'll be talking about some of the things, the work that we've done really the past 3 years to start to build teacher leadership, why we've done it, what we've done. And as a former teacher, this really is like the fun part of this work, getting to reach out to teachers in the district. So the why. 3 years ago, we really sort of launched energy and resources around this work to focus on several things. So we really see teacher leadership as a means of developing a retention strategy for the district. It provides opportunities for additional compensation for our best teachers who take on more responsibility and are really high performers and affect student outcomes. We believe it creates a career path for our most talented teachers to start to build different ways that they can step in and outside of the classroom. And it may be towards a path to principalship, but it may not be. And they're still in our classrooms impacting our students. Allows them to develop skills outside of the classroom and extends the reach of their phenomenal talents. So these are the things we envision teachers doing around the district as teacher leaders. So leading groups of teams, leading to increase their own voice and influence in the decisions we make and the conversations that we have. So often in central office, we are talking about things like teacher evaluation, and this is a way to incorporate their voice in that work. Leading to connect to a larger community, leading from the classrooms. There's all kinds of ways that they can use their own leadership development skills outside of just teaching. So we tend to bucket the kinds of roles that we've created in 3 different areas. So one is really elevating teacher voice. And the roles that we've created around elevating their voice are around teacher evaluation and also recruitment. So we take teacher leaders out to college campuses, to hiring events, to talk about the work that they do in IPS, why they teach here, and why others should teach here. We do similar things with teachers in teacher evaluation. They actually work with their peers, training them, talking to them about teacher development and the experience they have with principals over the course of the year. We also have roles that elevate teacher practice, so roles that really focus in on instruction and work with students. So as Dr. Farabee mentioned, we have opportunity culture roles of those expanded impact teachers. We also have teachers who work with student teachers in our district, and those are our clinical prep teacher leaders. And then we have a role called change agents, and they really focus in on an instructional challenge in a building with a principal over the course of a year and get support around that instructional challenge. And then we have a final bucket, which is really around leadership development. And those are our teacher leaders that lead others. So they lead teams of other teachers in various ways. And as you can see, this work over the past 3 years has really, we've sort of iterated on it each year, improving our vision, improving the roles and the focus. And so we have started to build a sort of a career path for teachers with the roles that I've talked about, so they can start to sort of see the different ways that they can impact both work at the district level, work in their buildings, and work with students. And as I mentioned earlier, we actually bargained stipends within our collective bargaining contract as this is additional compensation for their work outside of just teaching students. So you can see the various level of roles. The compensation really matches sort of the level of responsibility and accountability for student outcomes. So as they take on greater responsibility and accountability, that compensation rises. I do want to point out that because these roles involve additional compensation, there's an application process that we do throughout the spring for these teachers. So there's a interview, there's an application, oftentimes, depending on the role, there's a performance task or a work sample or data requested that we ask they submit with their application, as well as administrative recommendations. So it is a very rigorous selection process that they go through in order to be selected for these roles. And just a quick snapshot of sort of how we've grown over the past 3 years. So we started with about 51 teacher leaders in these various roles, grew last year, and then you can see a pretty big jump into this year. A new role that we added this year was we sort of revamped the experience that student teachers have in our schools across the district. We take a significant amount of student teachers from all of our higher ed partners for a semester in the spring and the fall. So we worked with our higher ed partners to develop competencies of what we would want the host teacher to have, and very clear expectations on their role with that student teacher. And so because we have so many, we added that role for all of our student teachers this fall. And so that's why you see that big jump. But as we've sort of iterated each year, we've seen an increase in applications as the word has spread, and they've seen their peers take on these roles and seen the benefits of both their colleagues and also what the teacher leaders are getting out of it. So that's been very exciting for us to see too. And I just provided a quick snapshot we do surveys at the end of each year, and we just pulled some nice quotes from teacher leaders for you on what they think. And I've actually invited a teacher leader, a change agent from Longfellow, to join me tonight in case you all had any questions about her experience as a teacher leader, and we're happy to answer any questions. So Bethany Jackson is a change agent at Longfellow, and this is her second year in the role. Any questions?
Commissioner Benton.
I think this is one of the most exciting programs that we've got going in the district. It just feels like it's something that will impact student learning very directly. And so I'm really glad that the administration is investing in this. I think it's amazing. But I would be curious, how has this changed your sort of daily, what's your day look like now compared to before you were in this teacher leader role?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So as a regular 7th grade social studies teacher, my day has not actually changed very much from the start of when I started the change agent process. I do plan a little bit more as far as our project. Last year, with Longfellow being a new program within IPS, our project was based around incorporating thematic units into our everyday curriculum. This way, all teachers at Longfellow could follow true to the medical STEM program, and whether they were English language arts or they were an art teacher, they would be able to feel part of the medical STEM program as well. So what we did was we designed thematic units throughout the school year, one per marking period, and we held paloozas or culminating events at the end of each marking period to celebrate whatever topic we had learned about with community partners. So as a result, the only change in my day has really been the monthly meetings with the Teach Plus organization that I've attended in the planning sessions, which Teach Plus would come out and work with me during my prep period. But other than that, it really has not impacted my classroom environment.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple questions, not specifically for the change agent teacher. There was a piece of information I saw a while back, showed the teacher retention rates, or teacher, I don't know if it was actually teacher retention, but showed, I believe, IPS 3rd or 4th from the top, sort of in keeping their teachers. And I don't know what that, maybe you remember that information, but I don't remember, one, what the reference period for that was, and two, if that is sort of a direct reflection of the work we're doing, and maybe that number has gone down.
Yeah, so We previously presented some of the retention data specifically to opportunity culture schools that we shared at the last meeting. Also shared some informal data that some of the Marion County superintendents had collected among the groups. Does indicate that there are some stronger outcomes that we're seeing across the district as it relates to teacher retention as we think about what's happening in other districts, but don't have those numbers officially, but we do believe that our teacher leadership work, in addition to opportunity culture, is allowing us to retain staff as teachers see career ladders if they want to advance in the organization, and also continue to stay in the classroom. And then we also see it as a way of attracting talent as well.
I think the example was Jeremy Baugh's school, and he has gone from a lot of attrition as a transformation school to none last year. So I think he lost one teacher was the actual statistic. So that helped his particular building. Yeah.
Then I have I've got 3 questions. Anybody want to interrupt me? On slide 7, where you got the compensation and roles, is there a back of the envelope kind of estimate on the time differentiation? How much more time it takes to be a multi-classroom leader on top of the additional duties? Is it, is there an estimate of something like that?
Yeah, and Kelly asked about, or Commissioner Bentley, sorry, asked about the time. So some of the roles are actually, she's still a classroom teacher, and the role is in addition to your role as a classroom teacher. So her day doesn't look different. She's got enriched sort of work that she does, and then she gets additional coaching herself from a partner organization. The opportunity culture roles, their day looks very different. They're both teaching and they're pushing in and out of their teams. So that is slightly different. I would say, the accountability and the responsibility increases, not necessarily the time, although I'm sure they spend plenty of extra time. All of them spend extra time outside the class day or the school day.
And then on slide 9, the sort of the growth, is that those numbers are the teacher leader count, is teacher leader application count? Is that?
The applications are the sub-bullet, so that we had about 380 applications last year for teacher leader roles, which was pretty awesome, and we ended up with 175.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just had one more question. What are your sort of future goals? I mean, I know you probably have some goals looking forward. You've had a major sort of growth for this year.
Yeah.
What are you looking at moving forward, like, the next 5 years, for example?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that we are continuing to expand our opportunity culture work in more buildings and iterate and refine the quality of implementation in those buildings. I would also say, just in the other roles that we've developed, expanding the partnership with Teach Plus, that's her particular roles, our sort of highest rated role when we get feedback from teachers. And so that's a priority for me in my budget. And then we've really tried to iterate on the roles that we've created, getting feedback from teachers on what's working or what's not, what's concrete and what's not concrete. And really trying to build capacity within sort of district level staff to support those roles. So I don't want to create roles that then no one can support and develop their leadership skills. So really ensuring that we have the right capacity at the district level if we're creating these roles to then give those teachers the training and leadership development they deserve.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. We're excited again to give teachers the ability to extend their reach. And I think good closing point as we prepare for the next presentation. I think this is a new way to address professional learning by relying on the expertise that we have in the district to improve practice in the classroom. Next item, Commissioners, is we will provide an update and overview of implementation of the Brain Institute framework in the district. We've had a number of schools that have employed this model and beginning to see a positive impact in the classroom. Ashley Calgar, who works in our special education division as a director, will lead the presentation tonight and share a little bit more about the framework and then early results that we've seen. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. Good evening. We're really excited to share about this work. We've heard a lot of positive feedback and have gotten a lot of questions about what exactly is it. And so we'll dig a little bit deeper into what the vision of Brain Institute was, kind of how it manifests over the course of time, and where we see ourselves going with Brain Institute the next year or two. So first, it's really important for us to call out that we received a grant a couple of years ago from the Indiana Center on Teacher Quality that has allowed us the opportunity to partner with Dr. Lori Desautels, who's a PhD in educational neuroscience and also serves as faculty at Butler University. Early last school year, we brought Dr. Lori in for a principal professional development and spent about an hour with her teaching principals about the how adversity and trauma play out in the classroom and in our schools, both for students and then also for staff. And the response from principals was extremely positive. And so we decided that with the funds that we have from the Indiana Center on Teacher Quality grant, we would expand our partnership with Dr. Lori. And from that, we sat down together and really looked at the feedback from principals, also looked at and had conversation with members of the academic leadership team to identify what our actual need was. And the overwhelming response was we need more strategies to make sure that we are both implementing brain-aligned strategies for students, but then also for staff, so that we're focused on overall human growth. And so our vision for Brain Institute was developed from there. And then the framework for Brain Institute is what came out of our actual initial work. And what we did over the course of 30 hours of professional development for 24 different schools and programs in the district last year, which was representative of folks in different roles in a school building, was to make sure that we built and established a concrete foundation about educational neuroscience, which really, the nuts and bolts of it ends up being, how do our brains work? Because if we're not understanding how our brains retain information, how staff manages stress, how students who've experienced adversity or trauma, who are showing up to school every day with basic needs potentially not being met, if we're not keeping that in mind when we are delivering our academic instruction, when we are working on positive behavior supports in schools, we're really not doing a good service for our students. And so the foundation of the schoolhouse here in our framework is the educational neuroscience. So how we address stress response, how we actually teach students about their neuroanatomy, a la how their brains work, allows us to create the conditions for better academic learning, to allow for PBIS, positive behavior supports, in our schools to be successful and to stick. And so educational neuroscience here is that grounding framework just to support all of the other work that we do within a school building during the course of the day. The 24 schools and programs that participated in Brain Institute last year are called out here on this slide. And over the course of the 30 PD hours, we had multiple roles represented. And the purpose of that was to help with sustainability over the course of time. And what we learned in looking at the initial feedback on our brain learning for principals is that the principals are certainly the leader of our schools, but there are a lot of, speaking to Mindy's presentation just a minute ago, there are a lot of other people in buildings who are leading. And we wanted to make sure that if we were going to expect that Brain Institute learning be implemented in schools, we needed to make sure that we were embracing the different folks who actually lead in the building during the course of the day. So each of those 24 schools and programs had representation from 4 or 5 different roles, and the primary was the principal. So the principals in their school staff actually had to apply to become a Brain Institute school last year and were selected by a cross-functional group, including members of the academic team. And in that application process, principals were saying, this is why we think this is so important, and here are the people in my building who I want to participate with me to make sure that we can take these practices back and then better provide support to our teachers and then also to our students. And so most of the schools had representation from the principal, the school social worker, counselor, teacher leadership, whether that's an instructional coach or a teacher leader sitting in a different kind of seat. And then we also had classroom teachers, plenty of them, who participated in last year's cohort. Calling out Francis Parker Montessori School, over the course of Brain Institute, we teach, we practice, and we work on implementation with school design, the actual learning of Brain Institute. And so the last 2 days, we actually call it our intensive for Brain Institute, where we actually dissect school improvement plans and work on how we're going to implement the practices, or like, for example, the amygdala reset stations, comprehensively in schools, all classrooms, and then having separate rooms too when they're needed. And so here, a couple of highlights on Francis Parker. Every classroom in the building has what they call a peace corner, which was their play on words for what we call an amygdala reset station, which is really a place for a student to recenter if they're having, for example, they're experiencing significant stress, or maybe they came into school with basic needs not being met that morning and they're struggling for whatever reason. It just gives them a few minutes to check in with themselves before we continue to pile on the additional asks that might create additional stress for students. Francis Parker also has a staff amygdala reset room. So a lot of staff experience secondary trauma, and we need to make sure that we're providing the opportunity, one, for staff to normalize, hey, I need 2 minutes to reset, and to give them the space to do that. There are also regular mindfulness practices that are being implemented at Francis Parker. They tweet about a lot of them. But it's really just making sure that we're grounding ourselves before we are jumping into the big asks of teaching and learning every single day. And one of the biggest highlights, which is pretty fabulous that the school is able to offer this, there's free community yoga, which is free to participants. And then they also do yoga with students on a regular basis. And whether lots of people like yoga or not, what it does is actually allow the opportunity for the amygdala practice to be implemented so that mind, body, spirit of students are focused as they're walking into their school day. And we want to make sure that these practices stick long term. And so the comprehensive implementation of Francis Parker really has been a serious highlight of Brain Institute last year. Although we have a lot of schools that are doing a great job of implementing the practices, because they did school planning, the Brain Institute learnings have been implemented in lots of different ways. There's been a lot of flexibility to the schools and how they embed this into their school design. And at this point, we just serve as kind of consultants to help make sure that their implementation is smart for staff and students. And if it's not working, we help problem solve when it's not. I think I missed a slide here. But just a heads up on where we're going with Brain Institute. We, in the next few weeks, will be launching the application process for our schools for the next cohort of Brain Institute. We will, again, review applications and select the 20 schools to participate this year with feedback from the academic team, also just making sure that we're thoughtfully reviewing why the schools think this is a really important practice for them to take on. And then we also are doing an assessment of our cohort 1 Brain Institute schools and determining what kind of one-off direct support we can provide to them through the course of their first year of implementation.
Commissioner Arnold.
So the schools that were in the first cohort will continue, or do they have to reapply? Are there 20 new ones, or do you start all over? I got lost a little bit there on how it transitions.
So last year was cohort 1, where we built the knowledge, skill, and the implementation strategy of Brain Institute with them. What we will do with them this year is going to look significantly different. So this year, it's how is your implementation going? How can we continue to help? While we bring on or onboard a new set of schools.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Gore.
How long have we been doing this? Is this the first year, first semester with these schools that you showed?
Spring semester was the first semester for the cohort 1. So we launched, and we'll launch again in January. So last January, we launched the support for 24 schools and programs, and they stayed with us through the course of spring semester. So we met 5 different times for a total of 30 hours. to teach the basics of the neuroanatomy, stress response, how we implement the brain aligned strategies in school.
Are they feeling any success? Have you gotten any feedback yet?
Feedback is really strong. The most consistent point of feedback that I hear is, I don't know why I didn't learn this in my teacher prep program. And educational neuroscience is not something that we as educators learn about when we go through teacher prep or principal prep programs. What we learn about are the basics of child development. When do children typically learn to read? When do we typically see students exercise fine motor skills? That's the stuff that we see and learn about. We don't learn about how do you teach to long-term memory and what does trauma physically do to a child's brain, so that when we have big asks or we're redirecting behavior, we're doing it in a way that maintains integrity for the student, in a way that is also mindful of the fact that they might have had a very stressful morning before they even come to school. And so we want to make sure that we're practicing de-escalation, regulation, also for staff, right? A deregulated adult is not in a position to help a deregulated child.
Mr. Bentley.
I just want to thank you. I think this is so interesting, and I've followed Dr. Lori for a long time on social media, and she's been, I mean, her work I think is really paying off, because I think she was the first person locally to really be talking about, you know, educational neuroscience, and so I'm thrilled that we're, you know, working on this in IPS, and I've also been following the yoga and other activities at Francis Parker, and I just think it's all, you know, wonderful, and it's fascinating work, I think. And so I appreciate all your efforts and all the schools that have gotten on board with this.
Just, I have one question based on sort of a personal experience with my youngest daughter who had some issues. So we were with a pediatric neurologist, and I remember the conversation where he said, you know, as we're talking about some issues, he said, we are just beginning to scratch the surface of what we know about the brain. And so I think about two things, sort of as you go from cohort 2 to cohort 3 and cohort 3 to cohort 4. One, what are we doing with, for lack of a better word, continuing education as we learn more about brain science? And then two is, as the inevitable happens, we have school leadership changes. What are we doing to either renew that leadership in the early cohorts, or have we built something in to maintain sort of that, again, fidelity to something like this, assuming that the school leader wants to do that?
Yes. So to address your second question first, part of the reason why we decided cross-functional teams for Brain Institute was extremely important is attrition does happen. And whether it's the principal who's changing a role or the social worker is changing a role, we want the practices to actually continue. And so we do have some school buildings where the principal participated in Brain Institute along with the additional staff to make the school team, but the principal's not in that seat or the social worker's not in that seat. The work continues. And for the folks who are new to a school that might be implementing Brain Institute, we have thoughtfully followed up with them as the school year started to say, hey, let's crash course, and then figure out what that person's individual needs, whether it's just knowledge or understanding the strategies, to provide kind of around support, but then also making sure they understand the capacity of the people on their team and with what they've learned.
Yes, I am going to ask my question, because people tend not to want to ask because they're not really sure how they're going to sound. So my question is I recognize that a lot of the things you do help to de-escalate many things that happens in our school, but what is it that's going to be the objective piece that when we know that we have truly made success and made a change, you know, with this method for learning? Like, how will we know that we have been successful and that it really has made a difference?
We certainly, the practices are observable in the schools. We certainly have particular outcomes that we would like to see over the course of time, and really some of those are just observation points that students have an opportunity, and so does staff, to reset if they are experiencing particular stress. But then some of it is small stuff too, nonverbals in classrooms for how a child articulates that they're starting to feel really overwhelmed, are things that we want to see be executed during the course of a school day that helps avoid disruption, helps avoid or helps maintain the academic tasks staying on track. So we've started with checking for the observable points. So there are very concrete strategies that we taught during the course of Brain Institute that we're looking for when we make our visits to schools. And if we're not seeing any observable evidence of those strategies, we're asking, why is the school struggling, or how can we help them make sure that the strategies are being implemented in a way that's meaningful for that school with their particular curricular model, with their positive behavior support systems. How we actually measure over the course of time is something that we're working toward. So at this point, we just know there needs to be strategies implemented in our schools. And again, how that looks in each school should be different. But we also are hearing feedback from the cohort members over the course of time that they need more of this, less of that. And as we move forward through Brain Institute, to the point earlier, we expect to redesign every year. All of the resources are available for every cohort, so they're not going to miss something if they came through cohort 1 or cohort 2. But we're still continuing to figure out what does our measurable design for Brain Institute look like, because there is a lot of it that can't be quantified, as like 90% are doing a particular thing. But based on observations, we can say they are using the practices, and here's how it's positively supporting students in classrooms. We also would expect that if these practices are happening within the course of a building, along with positive behavior support systems and social emotional learning, that discipline referrals will come down over the course of time.
Thank you, Ashley. Commissioners, the final report is our annual presentation of district fact figures. This is something that we produce in the fall of each year just to share with the community and the board some of the numbers on the district. Ahmed Young will lead the presentation tonight, share some of the figures for school year 2018-19.
Thank you, sir. How's everyone this evening? Excellent. I see some smiles up there. It's good to see. First off, I'm up here because obviously what Dr. Farabee just laid out, but in the spirit of, was it Ella and Sophie earlier? It felt like it was hours ago. It was just an hour and a half ago. It was a collaborative effort based on their project that they were focused on. And that same collaborative effort is how we compile all these facts and figures. So myself, HR team, academics team, operations, you name it, dedicated time and energy to make sure that we're able to compile not only data points and the like, but accurate data points to illuminate and illustrate where we are and provide a snapshot of the district at this point in time. And there are several themes that emerged during the course of this particular exercise that we try to do on an annual basis. And there are three themes that resonated for me, and I'll share those three themes very quickly before I move forward and fly through some of these numbers very quickly. The first theme centered on the fact that the first theme is one of that we truly reflect and are moving towards a more diverse workforce, particularly given some of the numbers as it relates to applicants and certified applicants and the like. The second theme that I think is really, really important is that we really provide a wide array of options for our families and students that are intentional, thoughtful, and really tap into all the different experiences and skill sets that our students and our families bring to the table. And the third and final theme is one that we are truly in the business of serving the needs of our students. That's our core business. It's the academic needs of our students. It's also the social and emotional needs of our students. And every single one of the presentations in this particular section of the agenda kind of built up to this, from the newcomer program to the wellness program to teacher leaders, all the way up to the Brain Institute and the like, and now to the facts and figures. And I applaud Mr. Mulholland for the way it was organized, because it seemed really diligent and thoughtful. So good job in that regard. I'll jump into some of these numbers, and I'll start with the number of schools and programs that we offer. As I stated previously, we offer a wide array of school options and programs throughout the entire district. One of the things I find myself saying on a regular basis is some people don't have an appreciation for the sheer size of Indianapolis Public Schools. And I've alluded to these four benchmarks throughout the city. You go as far east as German Church Road, you go as far west as High School Road, all the way up north to 71st Street, and all the way south to Troy Avenue, and you see this cobbled map put together of Indianapolis Public Schools. And you look at that map and you see all these different programs, 48 different traditional IPS pre-K to 12 programs, 20 different innovation network school programs, and then embedded within that, you also have more than 48 different special and alternative programs that with the goal, and you go back to those three themes, serving our students, diverse workforce, and ultimately we're able to really serve our students extremely well. And I'll go to the next section, which is a corollary to all those different academic programs and themes that we talked about. These are a lot of the different academic models from the International Baccalaureate program all the way down to the CTC program. And within all of that is affording our students an opportunity to really be exposed to a lot of different experiences all the way from pre-K up to the 12th grade. Embedded within that, additionally, are the different supports and the like from the district standpoint to make sure that our students and our professionals are in a position for them to grow and grow really intentionally, from opportunity culture schools, transformation zone schools, and choice and magnet schools. Really important data point, enrollment. And one of the key themes with enrollment is the fact that there was a period of time where you saw this significant drop, and then you see this leveling and this incremental increase, and that trend continues to this day. These are projected numbers as of as of ADM count, and we're in the process of validating and confirming those numbers. And then by the time next week rolls around, hopefully we'll have cemented our ADM number. But these are projected numbers, approximately 31,827 students projected currently in Indianapolis Public Schools. Diversity for our student body. Again, from German Church to High School Road and 71st Street down to Troy Avenue, we are almost 45% African American, 29% Latino or Hispanic, and that makes us almost a 75% plus minority majority school district. Almost 20% are identified as English language learners, as well as 20% are identified as receiving special education services. Our teaching staff, Mindy Schlegel did a great job talking about teacher leaders, but she also does a great job in the recruitment and the retention process. And many times when we talk about our workforce, we almost hone in almost exclusively on our teachers. Our teachers are very, very important, but there are also a lot of other professionals that are dedicating time and energy to support our students and our families, and that is going specifically to our classified staff, which when you include temporary staff, that is almost over 2,100 individuals. Teaching staff as of now and certified staff includes 2,028 individuals. You combine that all together, 3,700 plus. Just want to hone in on our teacher pipeline and some of the efforts, again, with Mindy's team, specifically individuals like Alex Mosman and others. We have been able to increase the numbers of certified new hires that are identified as individuals of color. Research has shown when you have a diverse student body, academic outcomes increase when that workforce reflects the student body. So that's important to note. Again, Mindy just finished talking about teacher leaders, and we see this uptick not only in teacher leaders, but student teachers as well. So the next step in that process, not only identifying an increase in numbers, how do we ultimately transition those student teachers, particularly ones that have fantastic experiences in Indianapolis Public Schools, into full-time teachers in the very near future after their experiences. I'm going to transition over to operations, particularly through the lens of transportation. Transport more than 22,000 students on a daily basis, 3 million projected planned miles during the school year 2018-19, and provide a daily average of 150 field trips, athletics, and extracurricular events. One thing I will note about transportation And these are my observations. I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone else. But one thing I have observed is when an issue is truly presented, the team is very quick in trying to address those particular issues. One example of that is tonight. I saw Scott Martin pop up and responded to the transportation issue that was articulated through the public comment. And I'm sure he took very quick and decisive action in trying to get A, additional information, and then B, seeking resolution to that particular issue. So that's no surprise to me at all. Finally, in operations, another key component of the work, and it's something that's been very important for the last several years, is the food service program and making sure that hunger is addressed and we provide meals to our students on a regular basis, particularly through breaks and the like. I know fall break is coming up soon, and we look forward to sharing on social media and in this boardroom how many students are fed during fall break, because that's really important, particularly when you think about the poverty rate and the hunger rate within Indianapolis Public Schools. So that's a quick overview of facts and figures for Indianapolis Public Schools. I apologize if I seemed like I was going a little fast. I'm ready to break my fast because I was fasting today, and I have a drink right here that I'm ready to break my fast with. So.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, at one point I want to go back to, and I think Ahmed did a great job of highlighting this point, is the certified staff diversity. That has been an area of emphasis for us because we know that our support staff, hourly staff, classified staff was much more diverse and reflected our student population, and we struggled to have that same level of diversity with our certified staff, including our teachers, our counselors, and the like. And so we're pleased that we're covering the ground on this particular area. We're not where we want to be, but we are excited that we're moving in the right direction, and we found some strategies that we think are helpful in how we recruit, and look forward to increasing that number to be even higher to reflect our student population.
More?
I'm always very happy so that we can show, you know, the community exactly what we're doing and all the great stuff we're doing at IPS. So can you tell me, in your 32% increase of people of color, how many of those were males? I mean, are we able to increase our male teachers also, teachers of color?
Mindy, do you have that data point accessible? Okay, we could look into that. But similar to the sheer diversity number, particularly at the elementary level, is something that needs to be addressed. I know I taught at the middle school level and the high school level, and walking into elementary schools, I see the stark contrast in the number of males, and that's something that we are working tirelessly on to make sure that we're able to address that.
Commissioner Gore, do you have any other? I know she stole one question, but.
Question about the males, but however, in some schools, you could go in and there is no diversity from grade 1 through grade 8. Are we beginning to try to make that a little?
Diversity, not only from racial and ethnic diversity,
Right.
but gender diversity is important as well. And we're making strides to really hone in on not only talent recruitment, but retention. How can we get someone into the building? So that's the first step. And the second step is keeping him or her in the building as well, whether it's an African-American male teacher at the second grade level, and making sure that he is truly part of the school community and keeping that individual within the corporation.
Thanks for your facts and figures.
And to just add additional context, I mean, part of the work of the human resources team is to diversify the applicant pool, but school leaders ultimately are the individuals that are making the decisions on those hires. And so we take a lot of pride in the fact that, you know, the applicant pool has increased, but also the diversity in applicant pool as well.
Mr. Arnold?
I just have a question on slide number 3, where you talked about the configuration, and you've got grades 8 to 12 and then 9 to 12. What school is 8 to 12? I don't know we had any 8 to 12.
That's probably just graphic from last year, where there was still 8 to 12 schools.
Okay. I thought we'd all gone to 9, 12, and I saw that and thought I had missed something. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gramelspacher.
Mr. Bentley?
I just wanted to say how much I appreciate this information, and hopefully we'll get it on the website so it'll be front and center so people can see it, because I just think it's compelling. I think it's easy to forget how large a district IPS is, and it's wonderful to see that our enrollment is, stabilizing. I think that's excellent. Increasing the number, the diversity of our teaching staff, I think, is amazing work that's being done, and so that's very much appreciated. But just being able to access this information, because it's great stuff.
In the past 17, 18 facts and figures was on the website. What we can do is make sure that we work to make it more prominent and easily accessible, so folks don't have to scroll through various things. And
Yeah.
I'm sure the Public Relations Department will work on that very quickly.
More than one click and you've lost people, just so you know.
Mr. Young, I have one question on slide 11. I'm surprised on the break service numbers that the winter break is so much lower than the fall break and the spring break. And I know, that's over the holiday period, all that, but I presume our challenges present themselves during those weeks also. Do we present the same opportunities over that break?
I'm sure we present the same opportunities, but one thing I will highlight, particularly during winter breaks, is that you have significantly more philanthropic organizations, food banks that are really honing in on that particular time of year. So I can't count the sheer number of folks in the private sector and the public sector that are providing additional resources for families during that time period. I think that's one hypothesis. I'm sure I can come up with a few more, but I think that's a big impact. You take weather, for example, into account as well.
Yeah.
People are less likely to get out of their homes and get out into the streets and go chase after those things unless they're coming directly to them. So that's another factor possibly.
Thank you. Commissioner Arnold?
I would just like to say I appreciated the information on the student population and how it divides out among the innovation schools versus, because we often hear that we're turning all of our schools into innovation schools, and from my calculation, it looks like about a third of our students attend innovation schools, and 2/3 are in our still IPS traditional schools, whether those are neighborhood schools or magnets. So that's really good information for me, because I had no idea how the student population was divided, and I appreciate that.
And I'll note, whether it's innovation or otherwise, it's still part of the IPS family.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mind if I stay up here?
Sure, sir.
All right.
Great lead into the unfinished business, which is in your materials for action, commissioners, beginning with item 7.01. We discussed on Tuesday evening the Title IX policy and the revisions associated with compliance, but also our teen dating abuse efforts to ensure that there's opportunities for this issue to be addressed appropriately, and there's avenues for students to express concern when there's signs of discrimination or harassment or teen dating abuse. You have in your materials the amended board policy 5518 and resolution number 7805 that administration is presenting for approval.
I will remind board we had the presentation on this last night. Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 7805 approving the amended Title IX and teen dating abuse policy as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Before we vote, I'd like to ask Maria De Leon to, who I think is still with us. Could you come up? We have the sort of leadership provided by our students, I think, deserves special recognition. And she's, I want to point out it's a Thursday night, and she's a college student and has chosen to be with us at IPS on a Thursday night. So as we vote on this, our astute Mr. Mulholland has produced a second copy of the resolution we signed to present to her tonight. So it has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Would you please come up and... Thank you for being here with us, and thank you for all the work.
Item 7.02, Commissioners, is the proposed amendment to the policy related to transportation waivers, which is Board Policy 8660. We're recommending an amendment where school staff or those supervising school staff had ability to execute the transportation waiver, allowing staff to transport students in their private vehicles. In your materials, Commissioners, are requesting that you approve resolution number 7806 that relates to the board policy revision for board policy 8660 as presented.
So moved. Second.
Read.
Oh, sorry.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Next section, Commissioner, is new business. There's 2 items for action. The first is item 8.01. On Tuesday evening, staff presented an overview of the professional services agreement with Katama, which will support the district's efforts to pursue cross-sector collaboration for facilities planning. Request that Commissioners approve the scope of work for the professional services agreement as presented.
Do I have a motion to authorize the superintendent or his designee to execute the professional services agreement with Katama Inc. as presented?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Last item tonight, Commissioners, for action is item 8.02. The administration is recommending that the Board of Commissioners approve the memorandum of understanding as presented in partnership with the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce to support the district efforts to pursue reduced costs and maximize resources as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve the MOU with the Indy Chamber as presented?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 1 opposed. The motion carries 4-1. We are at the closing comments section. Does any commissioner wish to offer any comments this evening? Hearing none. Linda Farabee.
I know Maria had to go back to campus at Butler, but I remember the day that we concluded our Superintendent Advisory Council meeting, and she requested a few minutes to stay after to raise this topic of teen dating abuse. And I just wanted to just publicly, again, commend her for her leadership, but also the Board of Commissioners for supporting this effort and staff making this possible. Excited that Indianapolis Public Schools will be one of the leaders in the nation around this important topic as we think about the relationships that teenagers and our young people are challenged with. And so excited to be in this position and have commissioners approve the policy that was presented tonight. It was referenced earlier that we are approaching fall break, and just a reminder to the community that fall break will begin the 2nd and 3rd weeks of October, and we will promote our feeding sites for families throughout the break. And our last week before fall break will be next week, and we have the opportunity to have an amazing presenter who will be at Shortridge High School on October the 2nd. I encourage everyone to get the word out about our cybersecurity event. It's a great opportunity for families, parents, guardians to learn more about how we can protect our young people as we think about some of the challenges we've seen with abuse or inappropriate relationships between adults and students. Oftentimes it begins with the technology that they have at their fingertips. And so we can be proactive in helping mitigate some of that, I think is a strong move for parents and guardians and for the district to lead that effort. Those are my comments.
And yeah, thank you for taking the leadership on that important topic on October 2nd. Our next regular meeting will be our agenda review session on Tuesday, October 23rd, beginning at 6 p.m. in this room. Having completed all items in the agenda, this meeting stands adjourned.